There are quite a lot of you who believe that Arthas had no choice or did nothing wrong at the culling of Stratholme. Now, if you haven't seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that this is not my personal view. I believe he did have a choice and that he made the wrong one, but I've seen a lot of well thought out comments and have engaged in quite a few very interesting conversations with you guys. It's been a lot of fun, and I have to admit that there was one of you who at one point almost had me convinced that Arthas made the right decision, which got me thinking, if Arthas really did do the right thing, if he truly had no choice in the matter, doesn't that make for a bad story? But before I get into that, I've got to give a big thanks to all you watching and to all who have subscribed to me. After my latest video on Arthas Minx from StarCraft blew up, a lot of you have been requesting more StarCraft content, and I just wanted to let you know I'm finishing up the Zerg campaign now, so there'll certainly be more content like that in the works. Okay, so I've noticed that there seem to be two different narratives when it comes to the theory that Arthas did nothing wrong. The first one is that Arthas' fate was fixed from some point in time before he was even born. Now, I'm not going to go into this one too much because it's part of the lore I'm unfamiliar with, so I'm undeniably going to butcher this. But in essence, from what I gather in the comments, some characters were able to control Arthas' fate, and therefore Arthas is seen as blameless for the actions he took. If you know this part of the lore, please explain this to me, because at a superficial glance, and that's really all I have, that seems to be an awful story. And although his fate is still tragic, not truly having any agency means he can't be considered a tragic hero, which a lot of you don't believe he is anyway. But even if he is not a tragic hero, what is that story saying? What is the point of that story? I'm sure it's become part of a larger narrative that probably would explain things to me, which I hope is the case, but it still diminishes Arthas' story. Instead of a guy making choices, good or bad, he's just a guy that life is happening to, who's just been dealt a shitty hand in life and has no control over his direction in life, which is a pretty sad viewpoint to have. But I know it's the viewpoint that some people do have, which paradoxically to me makes it more important to have a character like that who finds a way to break out of that pattern. The second viewpoint is the more compelling viewpoint, which is that the culling had to happen, and he was the only one brave enough to make that choice and carry out the act. And although I still disagree with that logic, it at the very least makes for a better story than the first scenario, because he still has agency, and in that scenario, it says a lot about his character. Being able to do such a thing for his kingdom while being abandoned by his friend and mentor. It is an interesting narrative indeed. The problem I have with it, though, is it kind of messes with the flow of the story. Like in the first scenario, he finds himself in a position where he has no choice. This time, it's due to his character. Whereas a virtuous man who cares about the well-being of his citizens, he needs to bear the burden of protecting them, no matter what the cost. Because he has no choice in this, though, again, it throws away the tragic hero element. Because again, to be a tragic hero, you need to have that element of choice. It is tragic that he was in that position and that he was traumatized by this event, but that kind of absolves him from the path he begins to go down. Because the way I always saw this story, Arthas just made decision after decision that made him go down the wrong path, each one becoming more extreme behavior. I think the biggest problem that we all have with this is that the choice to call Stratholme is actually a compelling one. There is solid logic to it, and it could hypothetically have worked. But that's how tragic hero stories are. If we look at the movie The Northman, it tells the story of Amleth, a young prince whose father was killed by his uncle. Amleth runs away and one day returns to avenge his father, pretending to be a slave, but the kingdom Amleth once knew is lost, and Amleth's uncle now has a remote outpost he oversees in Iceland. Amleth slowly begins to take revenge and plays on the mind of his uncle. He also gets into a relationship with another slave, and she gets pregnant. Amleth kills his uncle's son, and things start to get out of control. Amleth and the mother of his unborn children flee and are able to make it onto a boat that is sailing back to Europe. Amleth has his revenge, he has a woman, and has future children, but it's not enough. He can only think that his uncle uncle will one day track him down and kill his future children. And Amleth can't take that, so he jumps off the ship and swims back to Iceland so that he can kill his uncle once and for all and end this cycle of violence. And his doom awaits him as he and his uncle fight near a volcano and both die. We can see the logic of Amleth's decision all along the way, but we can also see how he could have had a better outcome, for he had a chance to get away with his new family, but instead chose a path that led him to his doom. What these stories show us is that these characters are so caught up in their own life circumstances they lose objectivity and make very human mistakes. Mistakes that we can easily identify objectively as the audience, as we are removed from the story. The ultimate purpose of this is to teach us a lesson on how to identify these scenarios, because although our lives hopefully don't involve a city full of infected citizens about to turn into the undead, pretty much all of us will at some point or another be in a situation where we are making bad choices or not ideal choices. A time when we lose objectivity, and in these moments, it's stories like these that help guide us, but not if the characters don't have any choice. Now you may say he did have a choice, just the culling was the right choice, and that's a fair take. You might even say the mistake he made was chasing after Mal'Ganis or lying to his men in Northrend, that any other decision he made was the choice that makes him a tragic hero, and that's all fair as well. I'm really not opposed to the idea that Arthas did the right thing at Stratholme. It just currently doesn't make any sense to me, but if I'm missing something here, or looking at this the wrong way, please let me know in the comments. I plan on eventually doing a video on the Undead campaign of WarCraft 3, so when I do that video, I'd really like it to be as balanced and unbiased as possible in regards to my opinions, so I'd really appreciate the help you can give me in the comments. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.